Preservation Park is one of Canton's favorite spots. Here, you can attend the Farmers Market, Rally on Ridge, and B4, or visit the Bartlett Travis House or the Katie Boyer Barn. Today, we're going to visit another of the park's residents, the Pole Barn Museum. As museums go, it's not the DIA or the Smithsonian. It doesn't hold great paintings or suits of armor, but it's a museum nonetheless. The role of traditional museums is to collect objects and materials of cultural, religious, and historical importance, preserve them, research them, and present them to the public for the purpose of education and enjoyment. While many may not consider this a traditional museum, that's exactly what it does. Longtime Historical Society member David Curtis opened the doors to Canton's Pole Barn Museum and allowed us to take a small step back in time.
About 1975, there was a small group of Canton people who decided they'd like to form a historical society to help preserve Canton's history. One of those members was Roy Schultz, who was a farmer out on Lily Road. And Roy went around to different farmers and asked if they would donate some of the old farm equipment that they had that they weren't using anymore. And once he received several pieces of the farm equipment, he put up a display on the south side of our other museum, which is the Canton Center School on Canton Center Road in front of the fire station and police station. So these pieces of farm equipment were exhibited on the south side of that museum. And about 1984, President Bart Berg realized that the weather elements were deteriorating the various pieces of equipment. So he met with the township and got an agreement that we could build a structure on the southwest corner of the museum, which was an open structure and had a roof on it to help protect the equipment from rain and snow. Then the township had built the new fire station and the township hall, and they kindly requested that we remove the farm equipment. Well, we really didn't have any other place to put it, so we were able to reach an agreement with the township, whereas they donated this piece of property so we could build a barn to store the various pieces of equipment. They had already moved the Bartlett Travis house here, although it had not yet been refurbished.
With that, they had the land, but with little to no money, they had to jump yet another hurdle.
So we had this piece of property. We got an estimate that was going to be around $30,000 to build a barn. Well, we only had maybe $100 in our account, so that was going to be very difficult. We had many fundraisers and received kind donations from several businesses and others.
The Historical Society took out a loan to build the barn, and most of the board members put their homes up as collateral against the loan. When the checks cleared and the dust settled, the museum finally had a permanent home. Continuous donations of old farm equipment and new life-size models keep the museum stocked with items that help connect us to the past.
Through donations and fundraisers like B4, we've had signs made up explaining what various pieces of equipment is so that people have an idea what they're looking at. Because today, a lot of the people are not that familiar with farming, so this will help them understand what's going on and what the different pieces are. The buggy is special to us. That was donated by Phil Dingleday, who was a previous township supervisor. His grandmother used it to deliver eggs here in Canton. Its design was often referred to as a doctor's buggy because in those days the doctors made house calls. Because of donations from people and our B4 fundraiser, we were able to purchase this life-size horse and the tack that goes with it to hook it up to the buggy. So it gives a better display of how the buggy was used. We just received a life-size fiberglass cow so that we could put it into the cow stanchion. Most people had no idea what the cow stanchion was that we had on display. We also have a couple of corn shellers where you can take the kernels of the corn off of the cob and then use the kernels for various things such as grinding it down for flour and other uses. This type of barn is more of a modern barn and is what people would use today for displaying, storing items and various uses such as in farming. And you can notice the different poles that are vertical that help hold the structure up, and that's the reason it's got its name as a pole barn. But it's a much more cheaper barn than what they used to do, such as the Katie Boyer barn when everything was handmade, hand-hewed. This museum helps show people today what the early life was like of Canton people and the hard work that they had to do, where they didn't have all the stuff that's mechanized like we have today, and they didn't have computers. The family life was sitting around the table and talking, playing games, reading to each other, stuff like that. So life was a lot different then. Sometimes I think it had its advantages. Most people that live here have moved here since the 1970s, and the community is now over 90,000 people, and they don't realize what it was like years ago. And we feel that this is very important to help preserve and show them what life was like many years ago in this exact same area. To cook on an old stove that was fueled by coal or wood when they didn't have gas or electricity, what it was like to wash clothes by hand with old wringing machines. Some of this equipment dates back to the early to mid 1800s. Some of it, particularly in our kitchen display, is around the 1920s. And I would say probably up until about the 1950s is some of the pieces here. A lot of this equipment came right from Canton Farms, so we're related to this area from that standpoint.
Most of us aren't history buffs and only peek in the barn when we come to the park for other events. But once inside, history has a way of grabbing our interest and reminding us of what our ancestors went through then to get us here now.